Welcome back to the City Ramble. Making sure if you can, you are hitting the subscribe, follow button if you haven't already, wherever you are consuming this fine piece of media. If you're watching on YouTube, you get to see our lovely faces as well. John, Adam on yesterday's show dubbed this one of Pep Guardiola's most intriguing team selections of the season, and I think that's totally the case because we have the Leverkusen mass wholesale change, and as we said at the time, like it will be one of those things that depend on how City do this season. If they're successful, maybe we hear about it earlier, but if they're not successful, then maybe it comes in a year or two's time. One day we will know why he decided to do that. Maybe it was something that was, completely innocuous. Maybe it was nefarious in the sense that something happened after the Newcastle game. We don't know. But it has kind of put the emphasis on the games after that. And I don't know. If you get first half City against Fulham, you obviously win comfortably. If you get second half City, then you're going to struggle. So do you see many changes? Do you think that second half was reason for switching it up a bit? Do you expect to see the rotation starting to come into it? Or do you think City, or rather Guardiola, goes with what he believes to be the strongest team? And I don't think it takes a genius to guess what that is based on his selections.
Yeah, I think we'll see a bit of rotation. And I think the only way that Leverkusen game can be somewhat salvaged in retrospect is seeing the level of some of those players and figuring out, okay, who's going to play in this very intense period, who's going to be part of that 14, if you like. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Rico Lewis come in tomorrow, for example, potentially in a midfield role.
I think I'm close to, maybe not so far yet because I think it can be useful in certain matches, but I am very much of the opinion that Rico Lewis is so much better in midfield compared to right back. I just feel like his physicality is unfortunately, I think he's got the attributes, but I think of the Spurs game, for example, where he just kind of got a little bit bullied, and I feel like he can not mask that, but certainly be more effective in midfield, especially when he's picking up space in the pockets.
Yeah, and I think I like how proactive he is in that space as well, and I think interchanging him and Reinders, for example, because I thought Reinders was actually very good in the first half against Leeds, him and Foden together. I do think that Reinders is still not quite up to speed and on the same wavelength as some of the City forwards, whereas I think Rico, I think back to that first game of the season where Reinders had an absolute blinder, but Rico getting into the space for the first goal, I thought that you don't do that without being in training with these guys for a couple of years. So I would be not expecting, but I would not be surprised if Rico came in for Reinders tomorrow. Maybe we'll see Doku on the right tomorrow and Marmoush starting on the left. I think
I see this maybe as a game Doku drops out. Nothing. He obviously wasn't spellbinding against Leeds. I think that's fair, but I think we have to be careful and think back to sort of early stage Doku and just how regular he picked up the niggles and the knocks, and maybe sometimes it's a catch-22 because some players need to be playing consistently. I think Jack Grealish kind of fell into this category. Not to open that kind of worms again, but you can kind of get more injured by not playing, if that makes sense. So maybe Doku's his body feels fresh. He's feeling good because he's been playing so much. But I would worry if you take that threat out of City's attack because apart from that, where do you go? You put Foden on the wings. Well, Guardiola kind of has alluded to he's not feeling that so much anymore. Shirky, we don't know what we get from him long term, but we kind of know where he's at the moment. I think you can pack him around a really good team. He can be really effective, but if you stick him in a team that's maybe a little bit weak in midfield, has a few holes in the back, and Haaland has an off day, then suddenly it becomes maybe a little bit of a cautionary position. I would be stunned, and I would also be concerned if Marmoush isn't involved in some aspects, and I feel like that will probably be off the left.
Yeah, I think so too, and you mentioned Cherky there, who I think unfortunately does really, really well as a sub for City in terms of if we are chasing a game like we were against Leeds at the weekend, he's exactly the kind of person you want to come in. He's going to find that millimeter of space in between the defenders where he's going to put that pass in and he's going to execute. He's also going to have some shots. That being said, City away from home, we cannot chase games. We have not, I don't think, and my research on this is a little bit rushed before the pod started, but City have not recovered from a losing position in the league to turn it around and win since Wolves away last year in that great start of the season run and John Stones scoring that header. So
we hadn't had the crisis at that point. We've been through a lot.
Exactly.
We feel like the same season.
A lot since then. We've gone ahead quite a few times and then had it turned around. Brighton, for example, that might have happened twice during that time.
Well, wasn't that Diaz goal at Newcastle? I think it was maybe Adam said it or maybe someone else. That was City's first equaliser from a losing position in the league this season.
Yeah, I think it might have been.
Which is
insane,
concerning. Like really low key. Well, not even low key. High key worrying.
Yeah, and that's not being able to turn going down a goal into a draw or especially a win away from home is incredibly concerning, and like you're not going to win a title if you can't do that. And so, I remember, around this kind of time of year, the treble season I think is different, but the season after that, 23-24, I think there was a stat that City hadn't. It'd been a really long time since we'd been losing at half time, and then turned it around and won away from home or something like that. And we then did it 4 games in a row or something stupid because of the mentality side of things. And I think we need to rediscover that. And maybe that is the silver lining from Saturday, is that even though the circumstances were very much of our own contriving, we still managed to turn it around and get that win, and then close it out. Because as you say, that 10 minutes that was added on, and as of course City score like 20 seconds into stoppage time, and now the onus is on us to stop them. I think we need to kind of, obviously I'd rather we didn't go behind, but we maybe need to adopt a more, we're going to chase the game at 0-0 rather than going behind and then trying to chase a game. We just don't seem to have the
Brighton was the perfect example of what you're saying there. And I think, in fairness, this City team has come on leaps and bounds since Brighton, and I don't particularly feel like any of the issues that we were speaking about after that. I remember Ollie Kirsch on this very podcast saying along the lines of, I don't think these players are playing for Pep, blah, blah, blah. And, at the time I was like, I'm not too sure I agree with that. But I think you can say, sorry, Ollie, just like quite violently called you out there. But I think you can say with fairly considerable, clarity that I think a big chunk of the squad, if not all of it, is pulling in the same direction, as we've seen with results against likes of Dortmund and Liverpool and plenty of others in that spell where City were looking really back to the best or close-ish to it. But I do think that is what you're saying is correct, in the sense that if this City team goes behind, it does feel a little bit like a death knell. Apart from that one Diaz chance, which obviously literally 2 minutes later ended up with City conceding again. So are you on the Marmoush train? Is he in there for you, do you think? Do you see him playing? Because if he's not, then what does he need to do? And the only thing I can think of, he's got the Africa Cup of Nations in a month or two. And
worried.
Yeah, does Pep want to avoid playing him into such great form? You take him out of the team and suddenly you're left with a bit of an issue. But it feels like a very reductive way to go about it, because you just deal with that problem when it comes. His minutes, I think, since I can't remember exactly the number, but I don't know if he's played. Yeah, it's crazy in the last 5 or 6 games.
Yeah, I think we talked about him being a victim of Doku's form. when he came back. But also, I think he's a victim of Cherky coming back into the side as well. There's just we've got a lot of fit wingers and attacking players at the moment, and so it's difficult to balance those minutes. So it might not be that reductive to say, well, if he's not going to be here in a couple of weeks, then trying to build an attacker, that really involves him as a central cog in that is a little bit redundant at that point. I do think that we need to show, I think, tomorrow that I think tomorrow will basically show whether or not we're serious about being in a title race. I think it's more than, because there's that result yesterday, Chelsea and Arsenal drawing. Chelsea winning would have been, I think, a better result for City, but at the same time, would it?
I know. I thought I was going to say this before. I think it would have. It really, and it's a shame that we didn't get to see 11v11 because I think Chelsea turned them over at that point. But I know what you mean, because City would have, by that point, gone down a position in the table. So again,
it's like there's a little chance here. There's a chance to put some pressure on. Yeah. And if Arsenal see City being like, all right, we're going to turn Fulham, we're properly going to turn Fulham over, which they're completely capable of doing that. If it's 3-0 and comfortable away at Fulham tomorrow, then Arsenal are like, City are 2 points behind us. We have got a game in hand, but they've played twice before City play again. One of those is at Villa Park, which seems to be a much trickier fixture for City at the moment than it seems for Arsenal if recent seasons are to go by. Don't expect Brentford to get anything, but you never know with all these compressed fixtures. Arsenal have played they played a North London derby, then they've played Bayern at home, then they've gone to Chelsea. There's got to be some fatigue from that, you would hope, but their depth is way better than City's, it feels like, at this point in time.
Yeah, totally. I want to touch on the defence as well, because I feel like that we spoke Gvardiol earlier this week, and I feel this is absolutely no slight on his ability. I thought for the most part last season he was wonderful, which is funny because he came out and said that it was his worst season. Hey ho, he's obviously been playing a lot more centrally this season, but I think you look at the options that City have available right now in defence. Granted, not very convincing in that game against Bayer Leverkusen, but as we said at the time, you change one or two of them, it's going to be much better than changing 5 or 6 in that defensive unit. I wouldn't mind seeing Gvardiol drop out of the team. I think you've got a tried and tested option there with John Stones in terms of working alongside Ruben Diaz, who personally I feel like Ruben Diaz has played really well this season. Or if you wanted to do the left-footed sort of change, you've got Nathan Ake there as well. I don't see at this point the benefit of trying to play Gvardiol through this patch of form, because he just looks like, well, as he did when he was sliding in with 20 odd minutes to go on Saturday, he just looks like his head's kind of a little bit elsewhere right now.
Yeah, I mean, I would be okay with him trying to play himself back into form at left back if we wanted to possibly play Nico a little bit somewhere different. I don't think it would be the worst idea in an away game to put Nico alongside Nico in like a more of a central defensive midfielder position, and then if you've got Gvardiol at left back, he did all right going forward the other day. He scored and he did a good job getting out of the way for Foden's winner. I would be okay with that, and I think I would bring in Stones in rather than Ake. I just think Stones is way more creative. He offers what Gvardiol does going forward as well. So I think either like drop Gvardiol back to the bench or put him at left back and do something creative with Nico, because I think he's shown that he's capable of basically playing wherever Pep needs him to play.
That's true. The only other question mark I really have on the defensive side of things for this match, Núñez obviously very much at fault for the Calvert-Lewin goal, the one that got Leeds sort of kick-started their comeback, albeit very much involved for the Foden opener. And overall, especially first half, I thought he played well, and he has played well. Is that possibly another one where you can see just a rotation to keep it fresh. Kusanov's there, I believe. He's not gone missing again. No shampoo gate this time around. But at the start of the season, we were calling for him to start as right back and be the right back, and that one again feels like it's been put on the back burner since Nunez's sort of emergence.
Yeah, I think just because this game feels really crucial, I think actually bringing somebody who's not played much in this back four at all into that is probably going to be worse than keeping Nunez there.
Yeah.
I think Nunez making mistakes at right back is probably the most forgivable that anyone in the team can do, because everyone knows that he's not a natural right back. He's gonna do things that
doesn't have that sense of danger almost.
Doesn't have that sense of danger, and the error that he made the other day. He made the error clearing it out, but like in some ways it was a very Pep error in that he was trying to be calm and just take it away and just sweep up the danger, and ended up
like
just assisting
the John Stones in his first few seasons, because he was great after that, but that 2016-17 season where John Stones would do, I don't think there's anything as sort of egregious as that leading directly to a goal, but it's the sort of thing that he was doing, and at the time it wasn't very fashionable to try and sort of dribble your way out of defence. Hot take, I don't think he should be doing it regardless, but at the same time, I know exactly what you're saying. Like it wasn't as if, I don't know, it was very much a brain fart, but you can maybe see the workings out a little bit more. Saying that on yesterday's show, I said I have no idea what he's doing. I thought it was unforgivable, so ignore me. But I know where you're coming from. I can see what you're trying to say.
I also don't think that goal gets scored against that many teams in the Premier League. I think the issue with being a defender for City in that thing is that opposition strikers are trying as hard as they can to get as whatever they can, and so if that's Leeds against
Brentford,
Burnley, or
Wolves,
Brentford, Burnley, someone like that, then I don't think that amount of pressure is being put on the defence in that.
Especially at that point in the game as well, 5 minutes or so after half time. Obviously, they did have a bit of a rocket up their arse, like come out and do something, but even still.
But it's like, any chance you get against City has to be converted, and I think City have been a victim of that quite a lot. And I think that was very much a factor there. That being said, Nunez should know that. I think I would stick with him because he does offer. I think he's offering a lot going forward. He's got quite a few assists this season now. I think.
Yeah, even throughout most of his City career, in fairness, he has been racking them up. Cool. I think we call it a day. Fingers crossed. That was the week that we will hopefully not have to experience again.
That was the blip.
Yes, hopefully. But as we've seen this season, blips have been forthcoming.
The last
sweet.
blip.
Yes, the last blip. No more blips. Anything else to add? Any other business?
I don't think so. I just we got potential snowstorm coming here in northeast tonight. So my car window broke earlier today, so that's going to be a fun combination.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. That's a hot take. That sounds bad. Fingers crossed, John, that your car window can be fixed, and like we say, no more blips in life and in Manchester City's world as well. That sounds like a good place to call it a day. Thank you very much, John.
Cheers.
Listeners, viewers, watchers, people of the City Ramble multiverse, will be back tomorrow, fingers crossed, reviewing a Manchester City win against Fulham. See you then.